It's on the renewable energy, sustainable biomass supply chain and energy. This presentation will be given by Colonel Rohit Dev. He is a Chief Operating Officer at the Punjab Renewable Energy Systems Private Limited, shortly called PRESPL, based in India. Let me briefly introduce about Mr. Rohit Dev. He is a young dynamic leader who moved from the armed forces after an illustrious career in November 2018 and joined the Punjab Renewable Energy Systems as a COO. And in his military career of 24 years, he has been at the top of the profession, held all prestigious appointments, had a detailed insight in the operational logistics and supply chain management of a strategic field organization in the Northern Command. A defense expert, he is a graduate from the National Defense Academy. He also holds a master's in operational art and strategic thinking. And he is an invited speaker and been a leadership panel discussion on many prestigious topics related to the biomass supply chain management and bioenergy sector in India and also in the global summits. He is also a prolific writer and orator and also a television personality in Indian media as a defense analyst and a geopolitical security expert. So let's welcome Mr. Rohit Dev to give a presentation on the renewable energy, sustainable biomass supply chain and energy. Let me ask him to share his screen.
Good evening in India here and mature part greetings of the day. As introduced, I am the CEO of one of the niche and a lead bioenergy company in India today, Punjab Renewable Energy Systems. And we have come a long way in the last 1 decade. This company incidentally has been nourished, raised and taken ahead by one singular man, Colonel Monish Ahuja, who due to his limitations of travel could not be here today. And he has been the man who actually thought 10 years ago nearly that biomass supply chain is going to be critical for every bioenergy project in India and across the world. Having said that, I will just, we have already overshot a little bit of time to cover that as well. I will take you through a presentation and just give my views initially, and then I'll be happy to take on questions both from Mr. Rao and the audience as well. If you go to the global energy scan, we find that in the next nearly about 20 years or so, there's going to be a quantum jump in the use of renewables. So if you see the graphics on the left, and you also see the surge on the right, it's enough to say that all forms of renewable energy which achieve net zero or otherwise are going to be most critical for every developing nation, every developed nation, and every aspiring nation as well. So I think the world is changing, and the dependency on fossil fuel and coal and other elements which we extract from earth are going to go away. And we have seen a transition in the last decade or so in the solar part and how India has taken the lead in the International Solar Alliance. I believe the next energy transition is also shaping from our country, and it will be in the bioenergy space, which rejuvenates the rural sector as well. If you go on to see the global projections, and you find there are two main headings I want you to look at, is the surge in the bioenergy segment and also the renewables part. And this is something which is going to grow exponentially. This is giving a world parameter. But I believe India in this particular domain will lead the world. Insofar as the consumption and renewable energy share is concerned, there are 3 parameters to note. And you see the slide and the graphics on the right. Let me tell you, the fossil fuel dependency world over has to go down because that is a limited resource. It does not have the timelines of millions of years to create the same oil which we can splurge upon. Modern renewables in all segments, with mini hydro, whether it is solar, bioenergy based, hydro based. It's all coming up. Wind based technologies are all coming up, and they are part of the bouquet of the modern renewable systems. And biofuels, like I say, whether it's for vehicles, whether it's for public transportation, private transportation, and whether it is tomorrow for the sustainable aviation fuel part for the aviation sector, I think this is going to be the future ahead. And why I did mention about the aviation future is because the CORSIA norms dictate that we have to make this change and abide by those norms to be more effective and more green. If we see the Indian energy sector, before I go forward, if I just cover these 2 points on top, when the CA has estimated the share of renewable energy to substantially rise to up to 44%. So we are looking at a decade of growth of renewable energy systems in India. And we're also looking at commitments we have made till 2030. And also we are very well aware, our Honorable Prime Minister has called for a net zero by 2070. These calls are based on the intent of our country to take this ahead positively. And there are many steps being taken, but in terms of policy enunciation, if you see the National Hydrogen Energy Mission and also the National Biofuels Policy and more, the intent is very clear, is to have this transition going through. In terms of consumption, our renewables is rising. It has risen in the last 2 decades very substantially. And also if we see towards the scenarios which have been played up, the renewables and also the traditional use of biomass are going to see a paradigm shift in the next 2 or 3 decades. In terms of investment, nearly an industry which will take in more than 80 billion US dollars in the next few years. So huge scope there as well. And mostly it's going to go to multiple segments of renewable energy, including when we're talking about electric vehicles, those kind of technologies, battery power packs, storages, hydrogen, and also biofuels. If you see the key investment which has happened during the pandemic per se and beyond, the analysis shows that in India itself, the investment has been upwards of about nearly now $10 billion by the time we are speaking today. In terms of the bioenergy part and Prespel, so let me give you a snapshot here. The energy demand, the bouquet is about 13% in renewables today in India, and most of it is going towards the bioenergy part, and most of that is going towards the waste part which is there in India. We also see the biomass generation potential in various types of biomass, and we have not even listed 1/3 of it on the slide. But these are the major parameters of counting are enough. And when we see the cost savings per year vis-a-vis fossil fuel, we are looking at up to 30 to 40% of the savings there. In terms of CO2 mitigation, GHG emissions being reduced, it's a carbon neutral fuel, so it helps with 100%. And energy savings in the terms of transition of energy to bioenergy based domain is about 10 to 15% on average, depending on which sector you are. If you just see the snapshot of the availability of biomass, so there is enough biomass available today in our country. And as we go into the future, on the left, you see various types of biomass, and this includes also the industrial waste, which would be groundnut waste, bagasse, and others. The uses of biomass are expanding. When we began with our company long time ago, we could see 2 or 3 of those major uses. But today, our company and also worldwide, we are looking at the transition of the utilization of this biomass, whether it's green hydrogen, biogas, biofuels, power generation, industrial applications for steam, heating, cooling, and electricity. Also, we find that there are enough small segments where Prespel has been encouraging entrepreneurs and itself taking on the mantle to grow these segments is the silage, which is the feed for dairy animals, for crematorium purpose, wherein you have on average, the Supreme Court of our country has pegged the value of a tree for 1 year at nearly 28,000, 27 something. And if you use 2 trees of 5 years vintage, you're looking at 2.5 to 3 lakhs of money being utilized in a cremation, and that to illegal handling of the wood. When you compare that with the biomass-based briquettes which we are using today in the country, the costs come down to traditionally about, on average, 5,000, 6,000 rupees per metric ton which is being used, and about 300, 400 tons being used there. I think it's a very good fuel for a process to change. We are using that in furniture, whether you see IKEA or any other global player today, even in India, they are using biomass for that. Hotel and restaurants have got a tremendous use. Even segments like the tea states, when Europe is looking at green fuel-based tea industry, so obviously we have to change from the heating, which we utilize for the weathering process through kerosene. We now have to use greener fuel, and that is where biomass is coming up, making utensils like crockery, cutlery, straws. You'll be surprised to know that coconut frond based straws which we use for drinking our beverages are being today exported from India to the world. And the last was the person whom I mentored is now selling that commodity in Hayat, Dubai. Particle boards for affordable housing, packaging, shoes and garments. There is no list which is ending without the use of this particular waste. If you see our company, we have transitioned from 2011, so we completed our 10 years, 11th running now last month, and we have been invested by 4 investors, 2 being the financial investors, Responsibility, Zurich-based impact fund, and also the SBI NEEP fund, which is a G2G funding between government of UK and India, supported by FCDO from UK and supported by SBI Capital Markets and SIDBI in India. We also have 2 strategic partners in Shell, who came to us in August 2019, and Mitsui, which took on the mantle to be with us in August 2021. So that is how we are growing. And 2021 onwards is the era, that's the end of 2021 onwards. We are very proactively looking at the compressed biogas, biofuels, and we will also look at the sustainable aviation fuel in the future. Our presence is pan-India, and we look at every kind of biomass possible in India on a pan-India basis. Our typical model revolves around the farmer. It's a hub and spoke model, where the village level entrepreneurs are created by Prestel, and they go back to their community and energize them to be able to collect the biomass which is required and bring it to our collection centers. And from there are many ways in which we utilize this biomass today, whether in the boiler segment, biofuel segment, or the uses which I have told to you in the previous slide. And our entire journey begins with putting the awareness into the minds of our farmers. And in our ecosystem, nearly 60% of our revenue goes back to the farmers in this way. In the canvas of our operations, we do supply chain management of the biomass. We do briquetting and pelleting of the biomass. We densify it to ensure it's financially viable for projects which are long distance projects from the sourcing of the biomass. We do operation and maintenance of boilers. We also invest in the boiler, and we have a robust biomass assessment study team which does a lot of study in India and also across the globe. Just to give you a snapshot of our supply chain so that you understand what it involves, this is typically how we go to the paddy fields. Stubble burning has been a major problem in India, which we are trying to solve, but we are not yet there as a country, as an entity. We have our own equipment, and we are able to collect these particular commodities. This is what a typical awareness campaign looks like, how we go to the villages and educate them. On the right top hand side is a person who came to us in the previous year, and within a year he has been able to buy not only a car but 2 more tractors just by being the VLE in this business with us. These are typically our collection centers. These are our collection centers and also the projects where we are running O&M boilers. This is the kind of handling we do of the equipment. So any source, whether it comes on tractor or bullock carts or camels, is welcome to get us the biomass in the country. This is typically a briquetting plant, which I was alluding to. This is the first of its kind paddy straw-based briquetting plant of India, which was inaugurated in 2020, which makes briquette out of paddy straw. This is another plant in Maharashtra. This is how the fuel stocking is done to cater for the industry. We have a very clear system of EHS which we follow in our particular operations, and we have a regular and routine check which we conduct to ensure that all the EHS norms and the ESG norms are taken care of. We follow acute global standards. Our shareholders are a guarantee that Prestel is doing the right thing, and through their encouragement and their support, we are able to refine our processes in this domain. We also do a lot of ash handling, and the ash primarily goes into brick making and fertilizers and other uses. We are cognizant of the pollution control. All automated plants give us a real-time information of the pollution index, and we are able to make sure that our operations are run within the acceptable norms. This is the project which was our first automated boot project, in which we invested in the boiler in Ropar in Punjab. It has gone through 2 years. It was commissioned 4 days before COVID pandemic was announced as a lockdown in our country. And till date, it has not suffered even a second of operations not running because of lack of supply chain. So I'm reiterating again and again, for every such operation which we conduct, our supply chain is the major backbone which runs these operations. There are enough energy savings, as you can see in this boiler operations, nearly 22% is a saving which we accrue. Typically, a farmer earns upwards of 2,500 US dollars in a straw-based economy, where we are aggregating the biomass to curate our supply chains. The key impacts which we have today are as flashed on the slide. I will not labor on it. You can take a screenshot. The person below on the right side is Colonel Monish Ahuja, so you can Google him as well. Financial benefits are huge. We have been awarded in 2020 the UN Sustainable Development Goal Award as well, and we are making a lot of progress. We are, in fact, one of the rare companies on the globe which has also signed the Energy Compact of the United Nations, earlier this year. The key challenges which remain in the biomass supply chain management are in three categories. It is firstly contingent to the harvest season, which is narrow. If you see Punjab, 45 to 60 days. If you go to south of our country, 2 cycles of harvesting. Yes, in the eastern part, you have 2 to 3 seasons of harvesting. The weather conditions not only affect the machines and the performance, they also affect the quality of the biomass, and quantity of the biomass is also a consideration because there are enough ground losses due to windage, handling, and other parameters. We also have this being a very complex situation of the supply chain. The dependency on the harvest schedule, the farmer's inability to have that much of biomass are all accounting towards complexities which keep rising. The warehousing problem, the storage problem. The other problems are also the financial nature, in which the banks don't understand the working capital cycle of this particular operations. Now they're understanding because of our interaction with them over the last 3 years, and now we are a little comfortable, but not all banks are forthcoming to understand this. We have also introduced farm financing loan schemes through banks, and in that the farmer has the advantage of getting paid first, and we take that money as a loan onto Prespel to be paid back to the bank with a little bit of interest later. So we are developing a lot of things to do around the supply chain of biomass, but still the handle to get the right thing is a challenge because of all the complexities involved, and as you can see on the screen. Then we see what kind of interventions we want, and I have only listed a few, but I will only highlight in my speech a few of them. The first is the financial part around it, wherein a standard loan which is today being taken by the industry and companies like Prespel and also farmers is with a very high cost of borrowing. That needs to go down, and that needs to go down to as less as 4 to 5%, so that you are able to make it much more viable in the rural segment to be able to do this business and carry the projects a little far away from the biomass sourcing areas. We also have to allow exports of biomass because we have enough, and we have enough potential. If you see the Argus index today as well, it is upwards of 170 US dollars in terms of biomass commodities. Also, we propose this hybrid projects for round-the-clock availability of even electricity. A solar biomass hybrid is the way to go. Special schemes can be made for plantation drives, and there is too much of focus required because today, if you see any country, especially India, there are too many ministries looking at various small components of the end use of the biomass, and they are all pulling the policies towards their particular projects and their particular vision. So MOPNG is doing the biofuel side, the Industrial Ministry, Commerce Ministry is doing something else. So that way the attention is divided, and we need to come under a single umbrella to get that going. I will not labor more on the financial aspects at the moment, but equity funding for bioenergy, and also the aspect of looking at the credit ratings, because if you want entrepreneurship to develop even in India and globally, credit ratings and such like phenomena have to take a backseat so that you can encourage people to grow in this sector, because the volumes required for business in the biofuel segment and also industries is tremendous. Finally, but not towards the end, I would like to just talk about how agencies like NABARD, FCI, NAFED, which are basically agricultural-based PSUs of our country, can also help industry with storage, how the state governments can help us with the land lease for a long-term tenure. So these are the kind of things which the government interventions can help us, and others are listed here. I would like to, give it a little pause and just talk a little bit more about the section before I go forward. This slide shows how, we have achieved a small mark in the industry for ourselves, and we continue to do more and more. That is generally the end of what I wanted to say. But on this slide, let me just recapitulate the supply chain part. Biomass supply chain remains the backbone and will be the backbone for all industries, either in the biofuel segment or in the segment of industrial use, where you are signing off steam purchase agreements, steam use, whether you are looking at even round the clock electricity tomorrow in the future, you are looking at all those small segments which I alluded to earlier, which also includes things like crematoriums, eco stoves. By the way, our company also is now not going into the manufacturing sector, where we are trying to make stoves, which are cooking stoves, based on biomass pellets, and also looking at space heaters, which you can replace kerosene in those kero heaters which you used to have earlier for warming of rooms and spaces by the use of biomass pellets. And we are taking this drive ahead, not only to the community in the city street, but also with the Indian military for their post in high altitude areas and other places. And the second part is the viability of the funding is coming in, and we need to make sure that there are enough SOPs available for this industry to grow without subsidies, because we have seen in the past that subsidies have destroyed. And one last parting shot as my personal intervention. We all are aware of the triple P model which we follow globally. There is a model of the 4P, the fourth P, in fact, the first P there in the 4 Ps is the people, which is the farmer. And my consideration is that if we make a project, hypothetically a compressed gas, a biogas project, and we peg it to a particular a currency to sell that biomass or the biogas, I think from the profit which you accrue there, if we are able to give a percentage back to the farmer. So how does it hit the system? Initially, I go to a farmer or a VLE and I tell them that I need your biomass waste, which is zero value, but I still give them some money that time to offtake that particular commodity, which is a waste. I take it to the industry and make a commodity, which is the end product or the byproduct in between, and I earn a lot of money. And if I give back a portion of that money back to the initial person on earth who sowed that particular crop and had that waste for me, I think he will become a lifelong stakeholder in this journey ahead. This is a snapshot of what the 4P model means. There is much more to that model in terms of policy initiation and otherwise. And I'm quite sanguine that today India is at a cusp of being at a leader in the energy transition. And while we are looking at all the gamuts of energy, whether it's electric vehicles or green hydrogen or otherwise, biofuels, SAF, the key component in this particular energy transition in the future, apart from the sun's rays coming down and the winds blowing and the water flowing, would be how much of biomass is picked up, because not only has it got connotation for energy transition in a very big way, it is going to make our country truly Atmanirbhar Bharat and strive towards the dream of Annadata se Urja Data. And I think that is the new beginning which India is looking at. And towards the net zero 2070, we will be a formidable force if we are able to just streamline and reduce the risk in the supply chain management of the biomass in our country, and that be sufficient. So I think I will put a pause there, Mr. Rao, and I would take on some questions or suggestions from you and the audience so that we can take this forward, please. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Rohit. Excellent. I know this fast summary of things what you're doing, and really great to know what you guys are doing. And I'm very much thankful to Mr. Monish to come forward, make a presentation. Of course, he was unable to join, but thank you, Mr. Monish and Rohit. It's a really great presentation. I want to touch a couple of points here. I see some feedback here. Guys, they're saying that they want to set up this plant in their state in UP. Okay, they want to reach out to you. I will share their contact, and we can take it forward.
It will be a pleasure. In fact, just to reiterate, in this financial year coming, UP is one of the key states where we'll be taking business in any which case. So it will be a great opportunity to do that.
Yeah. And also there is one person is saying they are also interested in Saudi Arabia. I'm not sure whether they have an opportunity in Saudi Arabia too. Okay, there is a
No, no problem. We can always have a conversation. We can always draw synergies. We actually are looking at a couple of countries in Africa today. And we did have a dream around the Middle East to see how to go ahead. But if there is somebody who's willing to make a beginning in that country, we'll be happy to support the mission as well.
So fantastic, and I really like them because I'm a son of a farmer. Okay, I'm a proud son of a farmer, and I'm happy to see that you're saying the word farmer entrepreneur. Okay, can you talk about how successful it is, and how many farmer we call? Actually, I used to work with farmer entrepreneur. Kind of blend the words farmer and entrepreneur together. Yeah, so
So these village level entrepreneurs or farmers, as we call them, it's been a transition, Mr. Rao. So let me give you an example of Punjab. When our company stepped in there in the early of this decade, last decade, we had to go there and create the awareness that, this is a waste, please give it to us. We'll give you the expertise in terms of manpower and the machines, and we'll draw it out. And after drawing it out, we'll also give you some money. So awareness campaign started, and Pressfield did the whole hog. We had the investment of machines and manpower and time and resources to extract that waste from the fields and take it to our collection centers. As a couple of seasons only progressed, I think the first only, so farmer grew wise. He says, I also have a tractor. So if I bring it to you, will you give me more money? We said yes. Then the farmer was also intrigued because the government said have a subsidy for balers and rakers and cutters that time. So farmer said if I draw down that, so the government will give me a 50% of the rate. So if I get my own machine and I only take your expertise and I get it to your storage area, will you give me more money? We said yes. And then slowly and surely the farmer said, I don't need you. I'll come and give you at the center. Give me my money. So that is the way, in a very layman's term, I've described to you how the transition does take place. I show you a photograph. That was of Karnataka, a place called Haveri. And when I went there initially, it had nothing. There was not even the concept of the waste to be picked up. And today we are running successfully a 100 tons plant, which is looking after Deccan Fine Chemicals Limited in Goa. We not only supply the briquettes from Haveri in Karnataka to Goa, we also do the O&M of this plant of BFCL. But today, that same farmer, I show you a picture, He, in 1 year's interaction with us, 1 year, one full season and one half season, bought 2 tractors and a small, car, not a sedan, but a small car. So that is the way the rural economy can shape up, and our country's interest beyond everything else. And I personally believe in this because, a lot of us, me, Monish, incidentally, my company is very unique. There are 5 of us. So Monish at the top, that's me. We have our Chief Technical Officer, Colonel Manan, who's a Gallantry Award winner, in the middle there. And we have Commander Seko from the Indian Navy and Colonel Sandeep Singh. 5 of us go back 31 years. We went and stepped as boys into the National Defence Academy in the same year in 1991, went to the same squadron and the same course. So you can understand what kind of bonhomie we have. We also have Colonel Pranav Roy, again a military veteran, at the top in the East Zone today. And in all segments of our management of the supply chain particularly, I make it a point to either hire a lot of ex-military people or a lot of young farmers, because I believe ex-military is because of the reach they bring to us and the kind of interaction and the humanness they bring and the purpose they bring. So the people are a little more assuaged when they approach them, and the young farmers because you also understand that I'm not too sure about the other parts of the globe completely, but in India, people want to go to cities. People want to go to Canada, leaving their farm behind for some other tiling community to come and tile. So we don't want that change to happen. We want farmers to be in the farmland. We want the rural community to grow better with amenities and facilities, but not migrate to a metropolitan city today. So that's also a challenge for both the country and the government of the day. And I think this concept of Jai Jawan, Jai Kisan, which Lal Bahadur Shastri said long time back. So we are generally there, the 6 of us on the top and many more in this company. We have done our Jai Jawan days. Now we are in our Jai Kisan days. So we are still young and trying to attune. But just to answer your question very briefly, anywhere where you go with purpose and your intent is clear, and yes, the farmer does get the money, it is good. It happened in Punjab. You remember 3-4 years back, fines for a stubble burning. So the farmer was trying to tell people like us that come and take the waste from my field, and for every acre I will give you 350 rupees or 500 rupees. Lot many people took that opportunity and curated their business models around that. We never did that. As an ethical concept, Monish and me decided that we will not do that. We'll still give the money, and that has stood us in good stead. We still have our VLEs. We are growing by numbers. We are enhancing our business. In the last 3 years I've been in this company, we have had a 15x growth. In the next 5 years, probably with the projects which we are like to look at, it's a 14x. Numbers in terms of X looks very lucrative. A small company, small revenue, but that's the way to go today. Small steps will take us a little more ahead. So we are happy to be with the farmers, and we are happy to make sure that we have the ethical and the proprietorial sensibility to make sure that they are carried along with us. That's why I have created a that 4P model, because nobody is concerned about them. Triple P, everybody makes, everybody knows IRR, everybody knows EBITDA, everybody knows gross margin. And my thing is, gross margin can be 5%, but as long as I'm giving 2% more to the farmer, I think I'm doing a little more human work on this earth.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really good to see that, that grassroots development, which you call it, the village, the countryside development, really. I always see that, in the villages also do you guys work as, farmers groups as individually farmer or farmer groups?
Both. So what we do is we go for awareness to a set of villages, pick up these young farmers and young people with a little bit of intellect and, the way to handle things around. And they are our village level entrepreneurs who then head on to the villages again, and they go and deep dive with their mamas, chachas, banjas and everybody else and sell the concept. Once the concept is sold initially, then we go on ground and create these systems and ecosystems. And as part of risk mitigation, we started last year. We started to sign up with the farmers to say, you give me and I will give you the money on a by basis. But you will appreciate it doesn't work with all locations, because farmers are very, very, concerned and scared when you tell them to sign off something. So we are simplifying those sheets. We are saying, okay, here you're writing how much you will give, and here's the money. So leave the legalities. But as long as social norms, no child labor and other things are taken care of, we are good to work with you.
And your company based, name shows is Punjab, of course. Agriculture is the key. Yeah, and how much a business in Punjab? Is it Punjab? Am I understood correctly?
Not at all. Okay. The name is Punjab because Monish started there. So when he left his military uniform and he took a premature, he didn't complete 20 years as well. So his uncle opened the first biomass-based, paddy straw-based power plant in the country. He imported a lot of machines from Japan that time, and he was the manager, Monish. And Monish incidentally has done, the nuclear physics course in BARC as well before he was taken out. So nuclear physics, so to say, came to the electricity part of the renewable energy, and today is running a supply chain company. And I think there is just no problem in the way we are looking at things today, and we will be able to shape this up much better. And as far as presence is concerned, it's actually pan India today, going to the 14th state as I speak today. So business expanding, and our shareholders are giving us a lot of advantage. I'll just give you one example of Mitsui India. Mitsui actually, has invested in us. So the Indian component of Mitsui, they have 3 regional segments in India, and they are through their affiliates getting a lot of business and also synergies to develop each other's business as well. So that is how a company grows. So we primarily are looking at how our growth happens in the supply chain bandwidth, and then to be able to support a Mitsui, a Shell, or any other global OMC or any other private sector in the compressed biogas, biofuel, SF. Those are the major ones. Today we derive a lot of revenue, like you asked, and survive basically on the projects which we have laid O&M of boilers. It's a temporary phase, but the moment the first ethanol comes, moment a few CBG come, moment the SF takes the turn it's supposed to take, we primarily will scale up in the supply chain segment only in a much bigger way, and all our shareholders and others will be the contributors for the projects. That's the way I look at it. But yes, Punjab is a misnomer. A lot of people have told me to change names. I go to Maharashtra, they say Marathi Manus, what Punjab name? All that happens, right? But since we are military, so our military people go and tell them in the language they understand. People do understand, so it helps us well.
So among India, which states really produce a major, biomass? Particularly talk about rice husk, which is a major.
Right, so see, we are not looking at the country from the paddy straw part. Like I told you, we're looking at cane, we are looking at soya bean, we are looking at maize, we're looking at many things. So say if I go to East, I'll just give you example of the three sectors. East, I would like to develop corn as a big business, corn-based waste. Corn produces excellent briquettes and pellets, too much of industry to grow from. Corn is a very good silage element for the cattle feed, right? And corn pellets can also be used for tea states for withering process. So imagine, I can use the same corn for industrial use, electricity, heating, cooling. You know, you want to have steam contracts. I can do silage for the cows. I can do the withering process. So we are looking at a particular commodity where we can, you know, sort of curate many more things around it. So it becomes a little balanced, you know, investment from our side to run that project as well. But name the waste and we will take it. So lentil, veneer waste, woody waste, you know, you have to name the waste to me. Coconut frond, coffee husk, you know, even de-oiled cake of cashew nut. Everything is up for grabs in the domain of bioenergy today.
And among these, you know, renewable energies, let's look at the wind. Okay, so wind it's compared to solar. I think wind is a bit slow compared, you know, because of various issues. I think how is the government support when they give support? Okay, biomass, you know, renewable energy. The plan is renewable energy, but when you divide into the solar, so into biomass, you know, and so how is support on government? How is the competition or growth among each other?
So right, when you compare the solar and the wind, right? Wind, Suzlon came long time back into the military areas of Jaisalmer and beyond towards the borders, right? They had a problem now. And the problem was because they didn't mitigate the most important risk, the risk of the land lease, right? It was not a government lease, land lease of 99 years or something like that. It was through people, and then people wanted more money and things had a standstill. But insofar as biomass is concerned, it has been a journey of slow awakening for, you know, our country. We had biomass in 2012-13. You must have heard of a lot of biogas topics and subsidies, and it crashed. It primarily crashed because, you know, the system was such that people drew a lot of money, project inflation, cost pegged at 100 crores, cost was not even 40 crores, drew down 50% of the bank, and never ran the project, right? And then everybody said lack of biomass. So not only was the project ill planned, and in most cases they were hoodwinkers in the system who did it, they also got a bad name to the supply chain part to say biomass is not available. Today, there are reports of every segment, whether it's a TIFAC report or an MNR report, and we also do a lot of biomass study for even state governments and key OMCs on the global standard today as a company. And we know how we do it. And we are very sure of the biomass availability. So when you see this, the only 2 or 3 interjection or interventions from the government was in the policy. I'll give you an example how positive the government is. I was in September in an open forum like this, trying to tell the Honorable Minister Shri R.K. Singh, who is both power and MNRE, what should be done. And his concern was NTPC. I said, NTPC, 1 tender, 2 tender. I told at the first tender to your chairman there that you must have a longer tenure, 4 years, no private entity is financially viable to go to a bank and get even a loan to raise money, right? Nobody did it. He listened. And the next week or 10 days, it was in the notification. That's the government of the day. Then we said, you know, he made 7 and 8 years. He asked me, Rohit, how much should it be? I said, ideally 10 years, but, you know, if you have to make a mix and match, 7 to 8 years. He made it. Then I said, why don't you enforce the use in industrial, you know, segment? Enforced, just the same letter, 10 days it took. Then we told him that why don't you do a biomass-based solar biomass hybrid IPP? Try it, because solar also start from 16 rupees and it's come to 2 rupees something right today. Try it. So that is the way the productiveness is. Today, you imagine, Mr. Rao, every policy of the government, especially when you saw the national electricity policy being, you know, have a relook or refined or any other thing, even drone, you talk of anything, it's on social media. You can go on LinkedIn, take it off, give your comments, and somebody will probably see it also. So that is the first, you know, indicator of change in the country, that when we say we want the RE transition, we actually mean that business. When I came, I was having a, you know, Bloody Mary with Monish when I was not even joined him. And I was sitting with him and I wanted to see what an industry is. And he was telling me, Ahmedabad to Mumbai, there will be a bullet train. I said, yes, that reminds me. Bullet train, Japan is giving a, you know, loan at 1% interest. Why can't we get 1% for this segment? And he laughed. He says, you are, you know, not even in the corporate segment. Nobody will give it 1%. I said, let's give it a try. And he says, you know, you have a Bloody Mary and try. So I typed and he looked And we sent some paper to the concerned people in IREDA and beyond. Today, it's at a stage where probably it will come through. Yes, not at 1%, but at 4 to 5% maybe. So I think at times there are ideas which need to germinate, and I think the time of this idea to make an energy transition in which bioenergy is a substantial subset, I think the time has come, and that is why the government is very, very, very proactive. In fact, the MOS of this ministry, Mr. Kuba, he doesn't look much after the electricity part. He looks after primarily the bioenergy part. So that's the kind of weightage there, and I think the government is positively inclined. There is a meeting on 7th as we speak. Day after, they've invited us again as PESPEL. So I think we are doing good, and the country is doing good. And I take a lot of heart from what we are doing actually.
Mr. Rohit, I'd like to continue discussion, but I still have a little time. So I thank you for joining. Jai Hind Sir, Jai Hind Sir. Thank you. And it's my first time having a guest in my 20 years of organizing various programs from the Army. I'm really glad that I know you. And
to be on some forum in which we're talking technology as a heading. So I'm also very excited about it. So hope to see you sometime, probably in Thailand.
Sure.
See you. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Rohit. Cheers. Yeah.